Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to jump in a time machine and head back to 1985. It was a time when the personal computer wasn't this friendly thing in your pocket. Oh no, it was a strange, new, and honestly a pretty hostile frontier.
And our guide on this trip is a really incredible book from that exact time called The Silicon Jungle. You gotta understand, this wasn't some dry technical manual. It was basically a survival guide for the poor souls trying to wrestle with this brand new world of machines, software, and all the corporate drama that came with it.
So here's our game plan. We'll start by exploring what this jungle actually was. Then we'll see the giants of hardware clash. After that, we'll get into the software, the soul of the machine. We'll see how people actually tamed these things. And finally, we'll look at how 1985 imagined the future that we're living in now.
Okay, let's dive right in. Our first stop, just trying to get a feel for the landscape. What did it mean to step into this silicon jungle? What were you even getting yourself into?
Now, the author, David Rothman, he wasn't talking about actual trees and vines. He was painting a picture of this chaotic new ecosystem of brand new technology, ruthless business competition, and just plain confusing human behavior that sprouted up around these amazing little silicon chips.
So $1,000 back then, that's like over $2,500 in today's money. It was a huge investment. But for that price, you were getting a machine that could be your word processor, it could crunch numbers in a spreadsheet, or it could zap messages across the country electronically. You know, all the stuff we do on our phones now without even thinking.
Now, in this jungle, you had these massive companies going head-to-head. They weren't fighting over land, but over the actual design and the whole philosophy behind these new machines. And nowhere was that fight more intense than in the battle for the first portable computers.
This table just perfectly captures one of the most legendary battles of that time, the Osborne 1 versus the Kaypro 2. See, Adam Osborne's whole idea was adequacy is sufficient. Good enough is good enough. That led to a machine with a teeny tiny screen and a plastic case that got really hot. So Kaypro, which was run by engineers, just attacked those exact weak spots. They gave you a bigger screen and a tough metal case that actually helped the thing cool down. It was this classic fight between good enough and built to last.
And to even begin to understand these machines, you had to learn a whole new language. Take RAM, for example. The book has this fantastic description of it. It's a quick learner, but also a quick forgetter. The second you turn the power off, poof, everything in RAM was gone. The magic number everyone was chasing back then was 64 kilobytes. That was the most memory an 8-bit processor could handle, and it was what you absolutely needed to run the serious programs. So here's the crazy part. Adam Osborne basically invented the whole market for portable computers that came with free software. You'd think he'd be set, right? Nope. His company went bankrupt in 1983. It was just a brutal, brutal lesson. In the silicon jungle, being first wasn't enough. You had to react to what the market and your competition was doing. It was a jungle for a reason. All right, so that's the hardware. But the real fight, the next battleground, wasn't just about the physical box. It was about the software, the programs that gave the box its power, its soul, you could say. And the absolute king of software back then was a program called WordStar. Its origin story is just classic. You had this perfect, if a little strange, partnership. Seymour Rubinstein, a marketing genius, and Rob Barnaby, this reclusive, brilliant programmer. Barnaby built the thing, Rubinstein knew how to sell it, and together, they created a legend. Now, WordStar's power created this fundamental split in how software was designed, a debate that honestly is still happening today. On one side, you had command-driven programs. You had to memorize all these crazy keystrokes, but once you did, you were lightning fast. On the other side were menu-driven programs, much easier for a beginner, but super clunky for an expert. The book's analogy is perfect. It's like walking into your favorite diner and yelling, "I'll have the usual," versus having to read the entire menu top to bottom every single time you go. And this quote just brilliantly nails that tension. Are you building a tool for the power user, the person who wants to drive a Maserati, or are you building it for the total beginner who's happy to just go 20 miles an hour? That was the core debate in 1985, and it is still right at the heart of software design today. So, You have these amazingly powerful, but also amazingly difficult new machines and software. How did real people, real businesses, actually manage? How did they go about taming this digital beast? Well, the first challenge was purely physical. The book calls it the Howl syndrome, after the Rogue AI in 2001, where these poorly designed computers were literally bullying the people using them. We're talking keyboards you couldn't move, terrible screen glare, awful chairs. It led to constant complaints of eye strain, backaches, you name it. And this wasn't just about being comfortable. One government study found that bad ergonomics could tank your productivity by 25%.
But, and this is a huge but, for those who did manage to tame the beast, oh man, the rewards were just astronomical. Just look at this. You have a finance exec who swaps out a $200,000 a year mainframe service for a $7,000 Apple computer. That's massive savings. Or even better, this construction exec who used a simple spreadsheet on a Kaypro, it didn't just save his company thousands, it helped him get so good at his job that he eventually became the company president. Incredible.
All right, let's head to our final section. Let's look at how people back in 1985 experienced the painful, clumsy, frankly heroic birth of the connected world, something we all just take for granted now. And there is no better example of this than the author's just incredible, almost funny story of trying to send a simple text file to the sci-fi master Arthur C. Clarke. I mean, it was just a comedy of errors. First, their software couldn't talk to each other, incompatible. Then all the phone lines to Sri Lanka were busy. They finally get a connection, and Clarke forgets to put a floppy disk in the drive. So as a last-ditch effort, a whole new computer is sent over, but then riots break out at the airport and it can't be delivered. It took months of this kind of effort to do something we can now do in a split second. And yet, after all of that struggle, all that frustration, the power of these tools was so incredible that it could make one of the greatest writers on the planet feel born again. And that's the whole paradox of the Silicon Jungle, isn't it? The tools were often infuriating, but what they made possible, it was absolutely revolutionary.
So here's the big question this leaves us with. Okay, sure, we don't worry about 64K of RAM or modems that can't talk to each other anymore. But have the underlying challenges really gone away? Think about it. We still argue about easy to use versus powerful. We still have to navigate complicated IT systems at work. And we still, every day, try to make these tools serve us, and not the other way around.
The tools have evolved in ways we couldn't have even imagined back then. But those core human and business challenges of how to survive and thrive in a digital world, they're remarkably the same. The jungle is still here, it just has different trees. Thanks for joining this explainer.